this. I have in mind that we're being recorded. All right, let's start here, whatever. Yeah, go to the last paragraph. I have a memory that we started this. No, maybe it was a different day. Yeah, this has
It's a
nothing.
good idea to read that last paragraph.
Okay, so the
Just
meeting's being recorded. All right, welcome
case,
everyone. Welcome once again to another reading of Lord Meher. We are in the year 1948, at the end of 1948, and we will pick up the reading here. We're going to start at the bottom of page 2688, I believe. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Harjawan Lal, a lawyer from Delhi, also came for Baba's darshan in December of 48. This was his second meeting, and this time he brought his wife and children. He had first learned of Baba in Benares, and Baba Das had contacted him subsequently in Delhi. Harjawan Lal's entire family became devoted to Baba, and the lawyer himself proved to be a great help in Baba's future work. Erich and Baidul were called to Merazad on the 19th. They received instructions from Baba, and then Erich returned to Pune and Baidul to Mehrabad. That day, Baba repeated what he had said the previous February. After Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, 75% of humanity will be wiped out in 1949. Early on Wednesday morning, December 22nd, Adi Sr. brought Manek Mehta and Burjar Mehta to Merazad. Manek was the leader of a group of Parsi Baba followers who called themselves the Jap Mandal. Baba asked him, "Is anyone in your Jap Mandal prepared to surrender to me?" That is not such an easy matter, Baba, Manek said, by way of excuse. Manek was receiving financial help from Baba and had become a Swedo guru himself to the mostly female members of his group. He asked Baba for further help, and Baba replied, "What do you hope to get from me? The people of your Jap Mandal think spirituality consists in japa, tapa, yogic practices, and seclusion in the Himalayas. Is this spirituality? My avataric work concerns the whole universe. It is not confined to the petty conceptions, conceptions of individual spiritual gains after following individual prescribed theories. It does not depend on any fixed rules, practices, or resolutions. My work is on a greater and vaster scale than Krishna's. Krishna ordered Arjuna to slaughter his own relatives. Can such a thing be dependent on any principle? Krishna ordered it for the supreme good, and Arjuna carried out his order. But like Krishna, I want some sacrifice. I want a few such men. Even if there is just one from your group who is willing to make such sacrifices, it would be sufficient reward for all your efforts and labors with the Parsis. The year 1949 will be a year of chaos, confusion, and disturbances. And you speak of the unsettled mess within your group? Without me to guide and inspire the institution, it will become insignificant and non-existent. The eddies and whirls of individualistic natures, even of those with a so-called spiritual aim, will be engulfed by the oceanic upheaval of the Avatar's manifestation. I warn all those who are in my contact about it. Manek had proposed that Meher Baba's name be disconnected from his group, and Baba was cautioning him not to do so. In fact, Baba told Manek to turn over the entire management of the group to him and to come and stay with him, which Menek refused to do. In spite of that, Baba agreed to increase the financial help he was giving to Menek. This was very hard to swallow. Oops. This was, I lost the page. He was, okay. Baba agreed to, in spite of that, Baba agreed to increase the financial help he was giving to Menek. This was very hard to swallow for Adi Sr., who found Menek's replies to Baba nauseating. Baba would invariably tell the Mandali that he was facing financial difficulties in his work, and recently he mentioned discontinuing the scores of monthly allowances he was providing to different individuals and their relatives. But in this instance, with Menek Mehta, he was helping someone who, in Adi's opinion, was not worthy of Baba's support. As Adi wrote in his diary, lately Baba has been hinting about the insufficiency of funds that the entire Mandali will have to face. Such a state has begun to prevail. It is enough to cause acute anxiety. Another person in Baba's place would be engulfed in confusion and worry. Baba forgets every bit of anxiety the moment he disconnects himself from the question. Still, the material necessity stands out boldly for the subsistence of the Mandali, families, and several other dependents for work and livelihood. The trend of expenses cannot be checked. During the impending crisis, Menek Mehta's request for increase of monthly allowance is met with by agreeing to double it to make it rupees 1,000 per month. Looking to the uncertainty of the monies coming in, it is frightening to undertake additional responsibility. Wonderful it is to find the current state of unrestricted generosity running concurrently with the tide of monetary crisis. The restless behavior of purposeful anxiousness is exhibited by Baba outwardly. It does not seem to touch the inner stability of his being one in identity, seeing and living with all souls and all things. Could you just move the text a little bit to the right? Okay. On Saturday, 25 December 1948, Baba took the women to Meherabad at 7 a.m. to spend Christmas Day there. He picked up Gulmai at Kushru quarters on the way, and some of the Ahmednagar women devotees also came, such as Vilu, her sister-in-law Suna, Meru Damania, Frani, Silla, Kaku, Jibu, Goher's mother Khorshed, and her daughter Roshan Sata, and her cousin Meru Mehta. At Lower Meherabad, Pandu and Ramju fought that day, and Baba warned them that he would disband the Meherabad Mandali and Ashram if they could not get along with each other. Erich arrived from Pune with Nagu, Naju Kotwal, and Sushila. Gadekar, Keki Desai, and Ali Akbar Alaba also came. After the women's fancy dress contest that evening on the hill, Baba left for Meherazad around 9 that night. On the 30th, to celebrate Meher's birthday, Baba took the women to the Guin Diolali Dak bungalow, not far from Meherazad. Adi Sr. brought Gulmai, Meru Damania, and Jibu, along with the food prepared by Shagan. They had a delicious pulao for lunch, rice mixed with vegetables, a treat. And just when all were feeling drowsy and were about to lie down for a nap, Baba called everyone for games. Nice color photo, Baba and Mera. On Friday, 31st December, Baba gave darshan in the morning in a decorated office room at Kushru Quarters, Ahmednagar. Baba sat in a chair behind a rope, which had been tied across the room. All were instructed not to touch Baba or to bow down to him. Families were first called inside separately and told to sit on mats on the floor. Adi Sr. interpreted the board. Minu Karas had come with his small group from Karachi, which included Minu's fiancée, Freni, and her father, Kaikushru Patel, Minu's sister, Dina Patel, Gulu and Khorshid Shraf, and Mr. and Mrs. Meher Dubash. Homi Desai of Lahore, Deshmukh from Nagpur, Nariman and Meherji from Bombay, and other out-of-town close followers were also present, as well as about 400 from Ahmednagar. Elizabeth and Narina also came, and they enjoyed meeting everyone again. Like many in the Karachi group, Bujur Rajkotwala and his daughter, Dali Arjani, had learned of Baba from a series of public lectures given by Manek Mehta in Karachi in the mid-1940s. But this was their first personal meeting. Dali had brought her 8-month-old son. Baba kept asking Dali, "Do you have anything to tell me? Do you have any questions to ask me?" Dali kept replying, "No," thinking Baba knows everything, so why should she ask anything? Baba observed, "She is not asking me for anything, but in fact, she has asked me for everything." Adi Dubash had also come from Karachi with his mother, Naiz, his wife, Rhoda, and their 1.5-year-old son, whom Baba had named Merwan. The child had just begun talking, and as he was walking around the room, he loudly shouted, "Baba!" All were surprised, and Baba commented, "There, of the many on the waiting list, I have selected him." After the families had met Baba, the rope was removed, and everyone was permitted to garland Baba, take his darshan, and embrace him. Because of all the bloodshed and bitter feuding between India and Pakistan, Baba's close lovers had been warned to keep away from politics and aloof from the melee. A circular was issued on Saturday, 1st January 1949, for those in Baba's contact, warning them that 1949 would be a year of tests and troubles for all, and of a great personal disaster for himself. Baba continued by ordering all disciples and devotees to be more engrossed in God than in Maya, by being less selfish and more sacrificing. The year 1949 marks an artificial end to an artificial beginning, and the real beginning to the real end. Although I am in everyone and in everything, and my work is for the spiritual awakening of all mankind, I am always aloof from politics of any kind. My principles and devotees should continue as before to abstain from taking part in political activities or discussion. His lovers were also ordered not to correspond with Baba from the 1st of February until the end of the year, and to remain silent during the whole month of July. To those who relied on Baba for financial support, a confidential circular was issued in February stating, "It is better to avoid a sudden stoppage of all means of support for an indefinite period for everyone." Let me read that again. It is better to avoid a sudden stoppage of all means of support for an indefinite period for everyone, in order to ensure the continuation of the minimum possible facilities right to the end of 1949. Drastic cuts and reductions are unavoidable. Okay, maybe someone else wants to take over the reading here. Jean, you want to go ahead?
I think Eva just unmuted,
Yeah.
so she's ready.
Go right ahead, Eva.
Ready to go. Okay. Baba sent for the must Ali Shah, who was brought to Meherazad by Pendu and Situ on the 2nd. Baba worked with Ali Shah every day and sent him back to Meherabad on 28 January. Kakabaria was appointed manager of Meherazad, and during this time, Baba settled the various home affairs of his disciples living in Meherabad, Meherazad, and Ahmednagar. Baba Das was sent to Hamapur on 7 January. Don went to Bombay to approve the final proofs for the wayfarers. Pandoba saw Baba at Meherazad on 17 January, and Baba told him to immediately gather information about all the melas to be held in India that year. Pandoba, Chagan's brother, and Baidu returned on the 22nd with the information. Baba visited Gulmai at Kushru quarters on the afternoon of the 24th. Erich saw Baba at Meherazad on the 29th and then left for Pune. The Rani of Paltan came to Ahmednagar and was accommodated at Sarosh and Vilu's residence, Vilu Villa, in the cantonment. Driven by Elizabeth in her DeSoto, Baba went there at 3 p.m. to meet her. Norina accompanied them. The Rani showed Baba a letter from the filmmaker, Alexander Markey, about his proposed trip to India, and she requested that he be permitted to meet Baba. Baba allowed it and told Norina to write to him. The collector of Ahmednagar, R.C. Joshi, and his wife also had Baba's darshan that afternoon at Sarosh's before Baba returned to Meherazad. Adi Sr., Ramju, Vishnu, Nilu, and Pendu met with Baba at Meherazad on 4 February, and Baba re-emphasized the urgent need for economy. He explained that he was facing an impending shortage of funds, which could result in the disruption of monthly disbursements or in the cutting of the amounts being given by half. The same group returned a week later on the 10th. Baba again warned Pendu and the other Mandali to be less extravagant, reiterating, there is an acute shortage of funds and days of hardships are ahead. None knows what will happen tomorrow. Those willing to stay with me may stay. Those wanting to go are free to leave. I am no longer responsible for anyone's spiritual or material welfare, and no one should expect anything from me. Those ready to starve may stay with me, and those who cannot may go. For an hour, Baba went on at length, emphasizing the need to economize in day-to-day expenses. While he was doing so, a stranger from Bombay appeared. He also heard Baba's warning and then had a private meeting with Baba, whereupon he related a woeful tale. Calling Adi Sr., Baba ordered him to pay the man 500 rupees and told him not to mention it to any of the other Mandali. Taken aback, Adi thought, Baba is so tight-fisted and demands an accounting of every pie. Yet he pays the stranger 500 rupees on the spot without batting an eyelid after hearing some cock and bull story. Observing his reaction, Baba remarked to Adi, "You wouldn't be able to understand it. It is my method." On Saturday, 12 February 1949, Baba went to Upper Meherabad in the morning. It was his 55th birthday, but no special celebration was done, except for the serving of a traditional sweet dish. In the afternoon, the Mandali were called to the hall at Lower Meherabad, where Baba reviewed their choices for disposal of their body in case of death and their individual wills. Baba laid the utmost stress on the adherence to the orders he had given in the recent circular. He warned them about being vigilant against lustful actions to the extent of instructing that no women servants work at Lower Meherabad from 1 March, and that the Mandali not even speak to a woman during Baba's 3-month absence. This is an essential requirement for 1949, Baba stated, a period which will be beset with the most unexpected events and developments. Baba took individual promises from each of those present not to engage in any lustful action, which he said might undo the effect of their long obedience and association with him. Final instructions were given to Adi Sr., Pendu, Nilu, Kaikobad, Savak, Baidul, Chagan, Ramju, and Dahake at Mehersad at 8 a.m. on the 14th. The following day, Tuesday, 15 February 1949, Baba, driven by Adi Sr., departed with MEHER, Mani, Meru, and Goher. They stopped first at Khushru quarters, where Baba met Gomai and Meru Damania. They arrived at Bindra House, Pune, at 4:45 p.m. From there, Baba and the women boarded a night train to Belgaum, with Erich, Manu, and Katie joining them. Vishnu had been sent ahead to make arrangements with his relatives in Belgaum for Baba's stay at a local hotel. Meanwhile, Kaka and Chagan stayed at Mehersad, while the rest of the men Mandali were in Lower Meherabad, and the women resided on the hill. Narina, Elizabeth, and Walu had also been sent to stay on Meherabad Hill in Baba's absence. On the 20th, Baidu left for Mount Abu as instructed, taking a cook along named Lala Bajaji Kambo. Jalbai went with them. From Belgaum, Baba proceeded with the group to the town of Vengurla, where Don had made their arrangements for a stay of 4 or 5 days. As he had done 2 years previously, when they visited the seaside spot, Baba permitted the women to swim in the ocean. Once, Baba himself waded in the sea with Erich, though Baba did not know how to swim. During his stay in Vangula, he again wished to contact the fifth plane Lala Must. The Must was living far away in an isolated area, and Baba asked Erich, "Isn't there any shortcut?" Erich reported, "There is an inlet, but it is full of brackish water. It would be difficult to cross, and it smells awful." Oh wait, I lost my place. Oh, there are tiny canoes that ferry passengers, but it is rather dangerous. "We'll take the shortcut," Baba decided. "Why spend an hour driving this long zigzag way?" They left the car, and Baba walked with Erich to the inlet. Erich told the young fisherman's son, plying his canoe, that he would be paid well, but that he should be extra careful taking them across. The boy agreed and scrubbed his boat well for the distinguished gentleman. Baba took off his coat and, handing it to Erich, stepped into the hollowed out palm tree canoe, wearing only his sadra. Erich was carrying a satchel containing a water bottle, soap, a towel, washcloth, and so forth. While traveling with Baba to contact musts, these things were necessary to wash the must and clean the often squalid area where they stayed. In addition, the bag carried sweets, clothing, cigarettes, pan, and other items a must might ask for. Erich got in, and the canoe pushed off. But after going some distance, the boy's friends, who were swimming alongside, began teasing the boy and roughhousing. Suddenly, the canoe overturned, and Baba, Erich, and the boy were thrown into the water. The channel was not deep, but Baba had gone under, and Erich had to dive down and pull Baba to the surface. They had to wade through the dirty water to reach the other side. Erich held the bag in one hand and with the other helped Baba across and out of the smelly water. Their clothes and the bag were drenched. After being helped up on the bank, Baba turned to Erich and said something to him which he never forgot. "Just as you have helped me out of this dirty water today, so also one day I will help you out of the filth of Maya." Baba sat down and instructed Erich to bring his other clothes from the bungalow. Erich protested, "How can I leave you here alone?" But Baba insisted, "Don't think about it. Go and bring a change of clothes for me." And there is a footnote. This is one of the rare occasions when Baba was actually left alone for more than a few minutes with none of the Mandali near him physically. Erich returned to the dock bungalow and asked Goher for clothes for Baba. "Where's Baba?" she asked. Thinking quickly, Erich replied, "With the must." Erich brought the clothes, and Baba changed into them behind a bush. He instructed Erich to wash his dirty clothes and hang them in the sun to dry, so that when he would give them to Goher, she would not be suspicious. They then went to Lala Must's isolated hut, and Baba was pleased with the contact. After spending a few days at a rest house in Amboli, Baba returned to Pune on 28 February 1949 with Erich, Vishnu, and the women, and proceeded to Bombay with Mehera, Mani, Meru, and Goher. They were driven there by Adi Sr., and Erich accompanied them, while Vishnu, Manu, and Katie remained in Pune. The women stayed at Nariman and Arnavaz's apartment, and Baba, Adi Sr., and Erich went to Meherji's, where Baba met Papa Jasawala and heard his account of the difficulties faced in disposing of the Bairamangala property. That night, Baba left for Mount Abu by train with Erich and the women. They arrived on 1 March and joined Jalbhai, Baidul, Gustaji, and Don, who were already there. Upon Baba's arrival in Mount Abu, an extensive must tour was chalked out. For some reason, Baba had taken all of the trunks, boxes, and tins containing the must treasures with him to Mount Abu, and they remained there in his room during the stay. For the next 2.5 months, Baba was continuously on the move, contacting musts. His efforts were particularly strenuous, perhaps in view of the earthquake which was to strike the Mandalay in August of 1949. It was as if Baba were trying to finish off this phase of his universal work before beginning a new one. Baba's work with musts began a week after his arrival in Mount Abu. Baba left on Monday, 7 March 1949, with Baidul, Erich, and Gustaji. They traveled to Ajmer, to Taragar Fort on the 8th. Baba kept Chacha near him for 8 hours, working with him alone, feeding him, and offering him tea and cigarettes. And perhaps we can get a new reader.
Any volunteers? I guess all the volunteers are busy.
You can be a volunteer.
Okay, I will. Baba remarked that his work with Chacha was now complete, and before departing, he gave the great Majzub his own coat, which Chacha immediately wore. Baba also presented Chacha with a new turban and blanket, and then dispatched him in the litter back to his abode in Ajmer. This was to be their last meeting. Baba stayed at Taragarth Fort that night, and the next day contacted a group of 44 widows living on the hill by giving them 5 rupees each as his love gift. Descending Taragar at 5 o'clock in the morning of 10 March, Baba entrained for Kishangarh. It turned out that the must he had wanted to contact in Kishangarh had recently died. So Baba boarded a bus for Sojat, where he worked with a 6th plane must saint known as Nuru Baba. Heading back to Mount Abu, he stopped at the town of Abu Road and communed with Khuda Baksh on the 11th. The must gave Baba a lungi, which Baba later wore. It was added to the truck containing the eclectic collection of articles presented by all the various musts. Baba returned to Mount Abu that same evening. Kakabaria had been called to Ajmer on the 11th. He stayed for 2 weeks and then returned to Meherzad on the 25th. Anna 104 had also been called from Mehrabad for watch duty at the women's bungalow during Baba's absence. That's a strange name, huh? Anna 104.
Yeah, that
4
is.
days later, that's the only name I've ever heard that had a number in it. Oh, except I guess maybe it's the 104th Anna.
No.
They say
I think the
John
number.
Peterson.
No, I think the number refers to a fever he had once, and
Oh,
I think
wow.
his name was Anna, the actual first name.
Uh, whoops. Uh, whoops. Sorry, my screen went disappeared. Should be back now. Oh, what happened? Let's see. I guess I've got to reshare maybe. Yeah. Somehow. Uh, okay. 4 days later, on Wednesday, 16 March 1949, Baba again departed, this time bound for Ahmedabad, with Baidul, Erich, and Gustaji. Baba contacted the Must Syed Nabi Mastan on the 17th and gave him 6 cigars. Baba and the 3 Mandalis spent the night in a place called Bibi's Rocking Minaret Mosque. And the next day proceeded to Kambe, where Baba contacted 2 musts, Rahman Shah and Bapu Karawala, both of whom he had worked with before. On the 19th, Baba returned to Mount Abu from Kambe. A week later, on 26 March, Baba recontacted Matragiri Maharaj, a high yogi who lived in a humble hut in the village of Oriya, 4 miles outside the town of Mount Abu, not far from the mountain's highest crest. Baba and the Mandali encountered a local villager who told them stories about Matragiri. The villager himself was past 40, and he remembered Matragiri from the time he was a small boy and explained that there had been no change in the yogi's physical appearance over the past 40 years. Matragiri was a tall and bony yogi, naked except for his loincloth. There was no doubt of his great age, yet his hair was black without a streak of gray, and his skin shone a deep dark color. His eyes were deep set, and his glance was most penetrating. Unlike Ile Swami's piercing eyes, this yogi's gaze did not disturb one in the least, because when he looked at one felt it was the glance of a saint. On 27 March, Baba contacted a must called Ganpat in Abu Road. He stayed under a tree outside the town. Baba took him to a nearby well, bathed him, clothed him in a new lungi, and gave him his own silk coat and some rupees. Pleased with these contacts, Baba returned to Mount Abu. Dawn was sent to Meherabad at this time with certain instructions, one of which was to bring back Rano's best pair of sunglasses for Baba to use on his musk tours. He was told to return after 2 weeks on 15 April. On Tuesday, 29 March 1949, Baba walked 2 miles to the village of Dilwara, near Mount Abu. There he worked with an old yogi named Bengali Baba, who had been living in a cave for the past 40 years. In Mount Abu, Baba contacted another must called Hari Das Baba Nirvan. He was an old must, bent over and naked except for a ragged loincloth. He sat, even in the most wretched conditions, on a stone platform near Naki Lake. While Baba sat with him there, Haridas wept and wept, referring to himself as Ishvar, God's dog. Overcome by some hidden painful emotion, Haridas clutched to Baba's side for 15 minutes before he would allow him to leave. Some years before, a couple from Ahmednagar had gone to live in France, where a son was born to them. Tragedy befell, as the father died a short time after the child's birth. The mother was grief-stricken and in a pitiable condition. When Baba heard about it, he instructed certain lovers in Europe to help her, whereupon she came back to Ahmednagar with the child. Baba nicknamed the boy Frenchie, and he was taken under Baba's wing, and his education was provided for by Baba. Baba asked the boy to stay in his company for 1 month every year, to which the boy and his mother agreed. On 1 April 1949, Adi Sr., Nariman, Meherji, and the boy Frenchie arrived in Mount Abu. It was common practice for Baba, before proceeding on a musk tour, to gather reports of various musts and saints and their habits and locations to facilitate his work when he went to contact them for the first time. 3 weeks before, Adi Sr. had issued a circular on 9 March, according to Baba's instructions, asking his lovers to send him information about musts, saints, sadhus, and mahatmas living in their areas, or dates of any spiritual fairs, melas, or religious gatherings. When Adi arrived at Mount Abu, he brought the reports of their findings and handed them over to Baba. Adi, Nariman, and Meherji left Mount Abu on 2 April, while Frenchie stayed for a few days more at Baba's request. Baba traveled to Bombay on 11 April, arriving the next night, and stayed at Meherji's house with Baidul and Erich. Adi Sr. had been called with Chuggan, Vishnu, and Kaikobad. Ramju and Sarosh also arrived, and Baba sorted out certain matters between them. concerning Sarosha's business affairs. Ghani and Papa also came. With Chuggan, Baidul, Erich, and Vishnu, Baba went by train from Bombay to Akola on Wednesday, 13 April 1949. The following day, Baba worked with 5 musts in Akola, or Akala, the most interesting of whom was Baldev Baba. He was a good must, about 60 years old, and gave Baba a watermelon and several oranges to eat. Before departing, Baldev enigmatically remarked, "I have made Ishvar. Now you look after the poor." That day, Baba left for Badnera, contacting Kali Kambliwala, whom he had worked with before in 1944. Dr. Deshmukh and his wife, Indumati, met up with the group at Badnera. Baba then traveled 9 miles in a bullock cart to Chantara village. The road was so bad and the ride so bumpy that after 2 hours of being tossed about, a wad of rupees 700 fell out of Erich's pocket, and one of his shoes fell out of his bag also. As soon as he discovered the loss, he informed Baba, who replied, "Don't worry about the money. First, think about the must we are going to see. The money does not matter. The must does. If the contact is good, it will turn out all right." By the time they reached Chantara, it was past midnight. Baba had been anxious to contact the must as soon as possible and indicated that he did not wish to wait until morning. Let's see, Mayor Karan, are you available? How about Rosalie Dunphy? And I think Rosa declines from reading, right? So it's back to you, Marvin.
Okay. Let's see. On seeing Baba, wait, okay. On seeing Baba, the must Badri Baba began laughing loudly. Then, just as suddenly, he became quiet for a few moments. He cried out, "Baba," meaning himself, "is hungry." It was 1 a.m. and the whole village was sound asleep. With much difficulty, Chuggan managed to persuade a villager to sell him a rupee worth of goat's milk, a little brown sugar, and a piece of bakri. Baba gave these to Badri Baba and then sat with him. By 2:30 a.m., the contact was over, and Baba was happy. Badri Baba was a high must, and Baba was quite satisfied with the work accomplished. They immediately left for Bandera, and in order to search for the lost money and Erich's shoe, Chagin led the way on foot, carrying a flashlight in each hand. Luckily, at the second mile, Chagin spotted Erich's shoe, and at the third, the bundle of currency notes was found. Reaching Badnera, the group left at once for Nagpur, where they stayed with Jal Karawala, who had been transferred there. Baba and his men drove to Bor Nala in Jal's car on 15 April to contact Amir Hussain, a good, subtle, conscious must. They returned to Jal Karawala's house, and after dinner left again in Jal's car for Sioni, 80 miles away. After traveling in crammed buses and third-class trains to remote areas, the Mondley thought that driving in their friend's car would be a much more comfortable and trouble-free way to travel. But they were to learn otherwise. After driving 20 miles, they stopped at the base of Ramtek Hill. On the hill was a temple in which a blind saint was said to live. Baidul and Chagan climbed the hill to find whether the saint would allow their, quote, elder brother to see him. But when they reached the temple and knocked on the door, calling loudly for someone to open up, no one appeared. It was past 9 o'clock at night, so after some time they gave up and walked down. After continuing a little further in Jal's car, the back tire became flat. They put the spare on, but then discovered its tube, too, was punctured. Baidul, Chagan, Erich, Vishnu, and Baba himself took turns pumping up the tire with the hand pump. But this was only the beginning of their troubles that night. On their way, the spare tire had 6 more punctures. And we have a footnote. The cause of the punctures was a twisted piece of sharp, hard leather that had been left in the spare tire called a gaiter, which the men had missed seeing in the darkness. They ran out of patches and had to wait for an hour at one place to borrow more from a passing truck. Only 7 miles away from Sioni, they had a final blowout, which left the tube in shreds, torn beyond repair. It was now 4 a.m. They had not had a minute's sleep for the past 2 nights. Chagan volunteered to walk to the town of Sioni and bring a new tire and tube. He left, but half an hour later, they realized that he had forgotten to take any money with him. Vishnu was sent to catch up with him. A robbery had been committed that night, and the police were patrolling the area. When Chagan entered the town looking like a disheveled zombie, the police arrested him. Chagan, however, was able to convince them that he was not the man they were looking for, and he was released. Vishnu and Chagan returned to the car with the new tube and tire. After it was fitted, they drove on to Sioni. Baba worked with a devout man known as Gauss Mian in Sioni. This man sat in a mosque and read the Quran most of the day. Gauss Mian was a seeker in the state of Hawa, the subtle breeze, and was approaching the first plane, Baba said. Baba and the men then drove to Japalpur. There on Sunday, 17 April 1949, Baba worked with 3 advanced souls. Magu Mian was a good must who used to wander throughout the area carrying a long bamboo pole on his shoulder. Raji Mastani was an old woman who was fond of carrying a basket filled with broken pots and pans on her head. Maga Shah, an old man, was found wandering about smoking a cigar, accompanied by an old woman, devotee, who attended to his needs. On 18 April, Baba was driven 10 miles from Japalpur to the village of Jumunia, where he contacted a high 5th plane Sali known as Dada Tantan Pal. Baba later described this great musk in a most beautiful fashion. He is a very loving, very lovable, and as mild as a lamb. Yet he radiates such power that when you sit near him, you feel as if you were face to face with a tiger. From Jumunia, Baba drove to Mandia and contacted the Niram Maharaj, a high fifth plane must, with whom he had worked 10 years before in 1939. During this encounter, the must questioned Baba, but before Baba could reply, the musts answered for him. Where are you all these days? I know who you are.
So, do you go till 12 or 12:30?
We go to 12 normally, and we are there right now. So this seems to be a good spot to stop at. And we're up to page.
Page 2701.
All right, let's stop the recording, please.
Okay.